I think sometimes I stabbed myself and died and woke up in a world where Howard Stern likes Ellen DeGeneres dancing. He has her on the show and kisses her ass and tells her he looks forward to her dancing. Nobody changes like that. It would be like Hitler running a temple.
Howard Stern. Oh, yeah. And his good friend, former vice president and former Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris. I tried so hard and got so far. I want to kind of begin this by threading a needle for you, and that is, I feel like a lot of these shows, and again, I say I feel like because I don't have any hard proof of this, but even bands and TV shows are getting money from the government, from NGOs. And if you Google, USAID funded TV shows, all you'll get is a slew of links in Google that are like, people are saying that USAID is giving money to TV shows, and that's a conspiracy theory. So you get, which to me says a lot. That right there tells me that there's something there. So listen to this. Let's watch this clip with Gary, because they open by talking about just the state of American media right now. And I think he has some very relevant commentary here about Operation Mockingbird.
To be in the news regularly. First time he's made news, serious news, since bitching at COVID was his show being canceled. And I love that they put a picture, and they did this on purpose, of him with Stephen Colbert.
Oh, right. Draw the connection.
Draw the connections is the cultural shift is happening. Okay. Yeah. And people are going to try to spin this as these corporations are trying to bend the knee to Trump now. No, it's the culture shifting. They bent the knee.
So to correct Gary here, the culture isn't shifting. The culture has shifted. And I said this before, not to go too far down this sidebar, but during the last election cycle, one of the indicators I was looking for, because I didn't vote, was, hey, the winner of this election will tell me personally whether or not the legacy media is still relevant. And we got a resounding answer, didn't we?
To Biden. They bent the knee to the federal government. They bent the knee to the state. People, we cannot forget Twitter had FBI and CIA assets working in the building. Isn't it ironic? That's not some crazy conspiracy. That happened. That actually happened. And it should, that's the one thing people don't forget COVID and don't forget that, because if they were at Twitter, they are in Facebook right now. They are at Google. They're at Disney. They're at any place that provides information, scripted or unscripted. They are there. They are absolutely in there. And they are censoring people, and don't think it's gone away. As a matter of fact, it was it Tulsi Gabbard? Yeah. So, Tulsi Gabbard brought up that they're going to finally end Project Mockingbird. Did you know that Project Mockingbird was still going on? I think I heard on Forbidden Frontier, somebody said, and on this channel, that Project Mockingbird is still going on. It never stopped. What's Project Mockingbird?
Not only is it still going on, now it has it has jet fuel because of the Smith-Mutt Modernization Act.
Mockingbird, CIA assets at basically every fucking newspaper in America. It started back in the 50s or 60s. It's still going on. So we had a politician from the Trump administration going, and I can't remember if it was Tulsi, it might have been somebody else.
When he said that about the CIA assets at every news clip, I almost went and pulled that clip of Colbert talking to Claire Danes about Homeland and working with the CIA, where she kind of gives the game away about how they're working with journalists. But, these shows are already way too long with the clips I have. So
said that we're going to consider ending it. So
consider?
Oh my God. It's still fucking going on. So, the culture is shifting, but let's not forget that all of our media is being manipulated with our tax dollars. And that needs to be fixed yesterday.
So he's not wrong about that at all, right? And I did want to start with that and then kind of show you the little bit of evidence that I could find around this. And this is obviously not for Howard Stern, but just to give you an example of the kind of like way that they do this. This is from an outlet called That Park Place, which I think is kind of a Disney based blog or a Disney focused news source, really. But here's what they had to say about Disney getting money from USAID, because there were a lot of claims being made to that effect. A new investigation by That Park Place has revealed that the Walt Disney Company benefited from a relationship with the Biden administration via funds provided by the United States Agency for International Development. Up to $6 million was tallied for a joint venture between the Walt Disney Company, Africa, and National Geographic. So it seems pretty innocent in that context. You're like, hey, whatever, like the government's paying for educational content or whatever. Develop a show that appears to have had scant viewership titled Team Sayari. It was created under the partnership involving USAID, the U.S. Department of State, the Walt Disney Company, National Geographic, and Wildfire Direct. The initiative sought to inspire young environmental stewards through an educational children's television series and community outreach programs across Africa. So here's kind of a look at it. You can find it on YouTube. It's a Team Sayari is what it's called. I didn't take any footage of it, but according to publicly available data, the money for the show was approved for the Walt Disney Company in 2021, shortly after Biden took office. The show debuted in 2022. At this time, we can find no source for how much of the $6 million was paid by U.S. taxpayers versus Disney. However, a look at the show's production values makes it difficult to believe those funds were well stewarded. So they also had a tweet from this account, Ginger Snap, and she pulled receipts from the grant award system, the federal grant award system that shows the Walt Disney Company's listed here as a recipient of grant money from the USAID program. So, I don't show you that to say like, oh, conspiracy with Disney, but just to show you that these companies, people like Stern and Colbert and Disney, are being subsidized through government funding. And we're going to get a little deeper into the Stern thing here in just a minute. And when you see, what's going on with him, it to me, it screams some kind of, funding like that. But also, he's already rich. When he went over to Sirius, they gave him like $500 million or something right there. So he's already part of that club. But let's watch another. This is a little bit more of the Nerdrotic crew talking about the Stern thing. And as I said, they're really just reading a article from Barstool Sports, but there's points.
And they have a point. When your bosses are investing hundreds of millions annually into your show, they're not doing so hoping you'll pander to one particular end of the political spectrum. They're trying to sell ads to the broadcast possibility, to the broadest possible audience, not fund your vanity project or watch you do tons of heavy lifting trying to drag a clearly diminished president across the re-election finish line. Scroll down. Up a little bit. Up. There we go. Throughout the years, how Joe met Jill, Biden's civil rights activism, which Biden has previously admitted never happened, Amtrak Joe, Stern went through his notes and hit all of the fiction. Stern reserved 10 minutes at the end of reciting all these hoaxes about Trump. Fine people hoax, suckers and losers. He hit all of them. It was one of the most pathetic interviews in history, and that's the interview with Joe Biden we're talking.
Yeah. So again, that is why I believe that there's some kind of like a grant system, or they're getting some kind of money to kiss ass to the government like that. Because I mean, Howard Stern's also old. You know, he's not the Stern of youth who was constantly challenging the FCC anymore. But just to go that far from, you know, what he was, you know, what he created. I mean, he definitely, even despite this, I mean, this is obviously going to hurt his legacy, but despite this, you have to give the guy credit for literally creating talk radio, or not necessarily creating talk radio, but really making a talk format popular in the way that he did it. And Fred Norris, by the way, was a genius with the sound effects.
First of all, you're wrong.
So anyway, let them keep talking here.
Talking about here, followed closely by his interview with Kamala a couple of months later. Look, getting an interview with the sitting president is a legitimate use of your airways. He'd be crazy not to take the opportunity, but there are plenty of outlets for that kind of content without having to pay for Sirius XM subscription. And fawning interviews with politicians was never what Stern listeners listened to him for, which is true.
It's also interesting to note that Biden didn't go on like Joe Rogan or, you know, any of those podcasts because they wouldn't have stage managed it as carefully as people like Stern and Colbert did for the Biden campaign. So hold on a second. Let me just let me get back to this real quick.
Oh God, Dom Lucre, fuck that guy.
I love that. He's like, Dom Lucre, fuck that guy. Gary's opinions do not necessarily represent the opinions of this channel. I just want to say that up front. I don't know Dom Lucre, but you know, I'm sure he has some kind of reason for that.
To me, the real reason Stern is out of a job after decades of getting fined by the FCC, protested against, threatened with boycotts, ripped to shreds from truly outrageous moments. For instance, and then we can show the picture with George Jefferson. Holy
so
shit.
just to stop right there, because I think it was Benny Johnson or one of the kind of like right-leaning podcasters that showed the video of Howard Stern. That's very incriminating video of him in blackface. That is missing context, and I'm not saying that the context makes it okay, but if you remember what happened, Stern was actually making fun of Ted Danson, because Ted Danson at the time was dating Whoopi Goldberg, or I don't know if they were married, but I know they would like had a relationship. And because he was with Whoopi Goldberg, I think he thought it was okay for him to do this blackface joke, and he kind of did it. And there was this huge outrage. So Stern is kind of making fun of that to provide context. But anyway.
Talking about how good-looking high school girls were fleeing Columbine shooting. Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So the reason I thought this was good too is they kind of take a trip down memory lane as to like who the old school Stern was, and reminded me, wow, like it's amazing that like liberals are suddenly like, yay, Howard Stern, when you listen to the laundry list of like terrible things that he used to have a KKK guy, which I thought was funny because the guy was obviously dumb and it made the KKK look stupid, but the guy would say the N-word constantly, you know? He's just like an outright racist.
Scroll down.
Oh my!
He finally committed the one unpardonable sin in broadcasting.
This is it.
Howard Stern became boring. And more important.
See, and just like with Colbert, the reason the USAID, you know, NGO funding thing makes so much sense is because neither of these shows were making money, but they were allowed to continue probably because they were getting some kind of subsidy. The station or the parent company, in Colbert's case CBS, in Stern's case Sirius XM, they're getting some kind of that's why they do the ball washing Joe Biden interviews. You know, that's like the trade-off for getting those subsidies. I'm sure that's, and again, this is not verifiable fact, but it's kind of hard to deny that there isn't something like that going on.
He betrayed his audience. There's one thing to become boring, but there's one thing to just go out there and outright betray your audience. I mean,
and again, he's been bad for a long time. So a lot of his audience fled a long time ago. I mean, as soon as he went to Sirius and XM, he lost the edge that he had by going against the FCC. That's kind of what made him funny, was that push and pull. You know, he would do things to skirt them, like say they had an ad for Sofa King, Sofa King, like a furniture store, but they're like, our prices are Sofa King low. So it sounds like Sofa King, you get the idea.
Tediously, ponderously, mind-numbingly boring. Flipping from his current shows on Howard 100 to his vintage material on Howard 101 is jarring. You go from him kissing up to D-list musicians about his craft and his process to the Whack Pack circa 1999, and it's just surfacing too fast while scuba diving. You could get physically injured from the sudden change in pressure. I'll never
That's called the bends, for the record.
Forget being at my old dead end day job, listening to her Stern guest who could queef on command. I remember those days, Chris. He had her with the microphone in her crotch, queefing along with Flight of the Bumblebee. That was it. Co-workers
baloney at people, girls' butts, and just like they were all crude things he could get.
Horribly crude things.
When they started reading through this laundry list of terrible things Stern has done, I remember so clearly he had this porn star whose stepdad came with her on the show, and they like hooked him up to a lie detector and asked him if he had like ever masturbated to his daughter's porn and stuff like that. It was pretty terrible. They had a bunch of that like weird incest type stuff and just like always pushing the envelope in the dirtiest, skeeziest way possible.
Co-workers in the next room had to come in and do a well-being check because I was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe. Dude, I was too. Like it made your workday better. But in less than 30 years, he went from that insane, outrageous, genius comedy to demanding people get a COVID shots because he's scared of the virus and doing PR work for celebrities like he's a host of Access Hollywood. Nobody summed up Stern's demise better than Artie Lang. How he became the very thing he made a career out of, burning to the ground. And this is a quote. I think sometimes I stabbed myself and died and woke up in a world where Howard Stern likes Ellen DeGeneres dancing. He has her on the show and kisses her ass and tells her he looks forward to her dancing. Nobody changes like that. It would be like Hitler running a temple. Fucking Artie.
Did you see his interview with Kamala? I only saw clips.
It's been a while since we've heard from Keith Olbermann. Keith Olbermann, what do you?
I'll confess that I have licked Joe Biden's dick all the way through since 1975.
What an ass kissing. It was the worst. I mean, all of her interviews were bad. He was doing most of the talking and kissing her ass. It's god awful.
Well, I mean, again, he doesn't need to be doing any of this. He's a billionaire now.
Yeah.
Like he cashed in, sold out. Don't even know why he does it anymore. And yet Stern did it. The ultimate career 180 turn from putting porn stars on a Sibian and being a sycophant. From being the voice and ears of every New York long-haul trucker.
From Sibian to sycophant. I like that. That's a good catchphrase.
And Manhattan cabbie to becoming Howie Hamptons and wanting to be accepted by the beautiful people he used to hilariously nuke from orbit to the delight of the massive audience. I listened to Stern a couple of years ago on Conan O'Brien's podcast, and he explained his conversion from comedian to celebrity sycophant in detail. How he just hated who he was. How he felt like his comedy was hurting people and he didn't want to do that anymore. So he reached out to people like Rosie O'Donnell in particular and apologized to her for all the jokes at her expense. It all sounded like a secular sort of religious conversion, which Artie and virtually everyone else in Howard's orbit will blame on his second wife, Beth Ostrowski.
Beth Ostrowski Stern. So the other thing that I think is so funny when I really think about this is if you remember Stern, do you remember Stuttering John? He would send Stuttering John out to the red carpet to ask the most awkward or like offensive questions to celebrities, and it was hilarious. And now he's one of those people. But also, age does that to you. I think it's like he already crossed those boundaries. There's not really what's left for him to do at this point other than kind of fade into retirement or whatever.
Sorry, I said Orsky, but it's a Strosky. Stern, who he put in charge of his show almost as soon as they got married. She took over, got a big office that producer Gary Delabonte had always been denied, and they were all told to answer to her, with the result of being a pedestrian, monotonous radio. It was.
I think that's a typo. It was supposed to say monotonous.
It is today. The prime example of that shift was the leaked video of the staff meeting he held in 2013, berating his employees and demanding less in terms of funny radio and more in terms of booking guests with books, movies, and albums to promote.
That's beautiful, man.
I mean, okay, I kind of understand the, like, Rosie O'Donnell, for example. Let's just talk about Rosie O'Donnell for just a second, because I used to love Rosie O'Donnell when she hosted the VH1 improv show. That's how old I am. You're probably like, what the fuck are you talking about, Dustin? But I get that side of the Stern thing. Like, he feels bad about what I think it really is. It's like Trump guilt. Everyone hates Trump for doing the same stuff that Stern kind of did, and he went, "Oh, I'm like Trump."